I am a servant of the secret fire, you shall pass. Well met, everybody. Welcome to Monad of Creation, episode number 11. We got a really good show lined up today with one of my favorite bands, if not my favorite band. You know, I fluctuate between a lot of groups and artists, but ultimately, Anamanguchi has been with me for the majority of my growth process and majority of my life, really, at this point. And I had the pleasure of speaking with Pete Berkman of Anamanaguchi, who's just a straight-up homie, very knowledgeable, wise, loving guy. Super dope conversation, very good time. And I think you guys will really enjoy the show, the insights. It's a very laid-back, fun one of my path. And it's been a part of my life, a huge part of my life. And it's brought me a lot of wisdom. That might be weird for you to hear, but also a lot of joy. Yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear. Thank you. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm based in Georgia.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did you come see us when we came through Atlanta on this past tour?
Not the past tour. So I've seen you guys in 2012 at Drunken Unicorn.
Yeah.
That was a cool show. This was the days of,
that was like 2012, I think.
Yes. Yeah. The indication for me, the biggest thing is Aries' hair. It was long and neon, like bright yellow. And you guys played like My Skateboard Will Go On. You played Mess, I think. A bunch of those songs. That was my first time seeing those.
That's before Endless Fantasy came out. Those are like the summer singles and the Scott Pilgrim soundtrack and all those things. Yeah. And
then I saw you guys again after Endless Fantasy at Drunken Unicorn the previous year. So that must have been 2014. No, that was 2 years after. So 2014, so at Drunken Unicorn again. Awesome show. And then...
and they have that Twin Peaks bar right by there, right? There's like what's that called again? The Book House or something?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure the Twin Peaks bar is right there. Yeah, man. So I guess I'll just tell you how many times I've seen you live. So Drunken Unicorn 2012, and then Drunken Unicorn again, it must have been 2014. And then I saw you at, what was the other venue called? I forget, but this must have been 2015 or 2016.
Terminal West?
Terminal West, dude, yeah. Yes. That was a cool show. You played with some DJs.
Laserdisc, I think we were touring with.
Yeah, and he did like Majora's Mask's samples, which was really awesome.
Definitely.
It's really making me think. And then, was that the last time I saw you guys? It's been a while. I missed all the USA stuff, unfortunately. I really wish I saw the USA tour, especially considering, everything going on. But let's jump into questions, if you don't mind. I'm gonna just jump into it. So, guys, welcome Pete Berkman of Anamanaguchi to the show. He and his band Anamanaguchi have been really influential in my path for reasons you might not really think are very vital to my growth as an individual, but what the band and their attitude and their authentic personalities really provide for the listener or the fans or anybody who's really absorbing the content is just this raw sense of uniqueness and expression and fun and happiness. And we'll get into inner child work later in the show, but for me, when I want to just express myself and vibe and like feel my inner child, but yet a sense of, mature seriousness, put on some Anamanaguchi. And I found them in 2012 at the end of high school when I was skateboarding all the time, listening to Airbrushed, the summer singles, like when I was just skating, being a little skate punk. When I was in my punk phase, I would switch from like crust punk music to Anamanaguchi to reggae. Good times. And, as they developed their sound, it really developed with the world, surprisingly, and my personal growth, which has been really bizarre to actually comprehend and realize. In 2013, they had this album called Endless Fantasy. That was quite a fantasy for them, I'm sure. And just the listening experience alone, but the world, energetically and culturally and everything was going through some beautiful changes too. And as they released more singles and OSTs for their original game, the sound just like really mirrored my and the world's process in ways we could get into. But specifically, it helped me a bunch. And in 2019, they released USA, which honestly, we could talk about it, Pete, but the themes in that album, man, the emotion it gives, the sense of like self-love really with like and sovereignty with the tracks, It's Up to You and On My Own, and then just the whole vibe of the album. And then not only it's called USA and the country USA, I don't know if it's a reference to the country USA, but I mean, look at what's going on with the country. It's really wild, dude. And it's just like a beautiful mirror of a serious, like thoughtful expression, the band as a whole, and then just raw fun and enjoyment. So welcome to the show, dude. If you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and the band, that'd be cool. But just nothing's taboo here. Just be yourself, honestly.
Okay, cool. First of all, thanks for having me. Yeah. That's cool to hear that like you found us during like a punk phase, because that's a lot of when I started making music, I was listening to all kinds of punk music. Like my older brother got me on that stuff like really early on. So probably in like 2001, I was like already listening to like Leftover Crack and Choking Victim.
No way. And those were my jam. Those were straight up my favorite bands for like probably 5 years straight. Those two bands. Yeah, me too. SZA and everything. Yeah. Like I went to go see them. I'm from New York, so we'd go to Tompkins Square Park, where they had their annual show that they would play to commemorate when the police kicked out the homeless people from the park. So that was a huge part of not only my like musical upbringing, but just like my general upbringing. Just like these small DIY communities, and I think that's something that unites all of us in the band. Like Luke and Ari are from the West Coast, James is from New York, like where I'm from in the suburbs. But yeah, I mean, like we've always really been a super independent band. We only just now, after being a band for I don't know, like 13 years, I guess, maybe even 15, 16 years, finally signed to Polyvinyl to release that album USA. But everything else before that had either been like one-offs with net labels where they were released under Creative Commons and stuff like that. So yeah, that whole sort of like ethos has always grounded everything that we do, and sort of informed, what we think is fun to do. And maybe that reflects like how we enjoy changing with the time, I guess, and like trying to be as close to things as we can, instead of like trying to enforce something, Right.
So anyway, that's just cool to hear.
It's really awesome.
But I also skated a bit. I sucked at skating, but I did do it. I had a birdhouse skateboard deck. Or maybe it was a Baker. I don't remember. Either way, I sucked. But yeah, I forgot if you asked me a question. But
no, I was just asking you to introduce. But that's awesome, dude. That I could totally tell, especially like not only just the distorted guitars and the obviously like 4/4 punk beats in Power Supply and the early stuff, but also just the way you approach track lists. I used to be a musician. I mean, I still am at heart, but I noticed like especially in let me think, Endless Fantasy, I mean all the albums really, the way you would hop from like pop song to like chill interludes, and then freaking Meow and like Bozoka GF. I'm like, okay, these guys don't, first of all, they don't really care what people think about their art, and they also just are totally doing themselves. Like they're just doing it, and it's like punk rock. So yeah, that totally makes sense that you're into that ethos. And I remember hearing you talk about wanting to cover Weezer, and then you were also playing Mega Man at the same time. You're like, let's just do both. I'm like, yeah, that's straight up punk rock. Like that's
that was back in the day. Yeah, like in high school. That's sort of like some of the genesis of it. Because yeah, like in middle school, I was playing in punk bands in the city, and then in high school, I started like jamming with my friends, doing like sort of more at the drive-in-y Sunny Day Real Estate style, guitar-y driven stuff. We actually had 3 guitars in the band, and so whenever we'd practice, we'd just be in the basement and like playing video games, eating snacks and stuff, and yeah, like playing video games, listening to like another soundtrack. Like yeah, I would play like Yoshi's Story and listen to Minor Threat or whatever. Or,
oh my god, like, that makes so much sense.
Like, this is all like my older brother, the influence so there. But yeah, shout out to Dan, the man, my brother. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just sort of like I also wouldn't say that we necessarily don't care what people think. I feel like it's more like we're sort of like we pay attention to like what we feel is like flowing well and what we think other people will be like. Yeah, this is something that's like something that makes sense, you know.
Right.
We're not trying to like go over people's heads or anything.
Exactly.
But yeah, we put a lot of thought over you know, how this stuff is structured. So. You know, USA, that album, we actually announced it in 2014 with that title. We were like, you know, after Endless Fantasy, we felt like the thing that made the most sense was to like go into reality. And the sort of like most unavoidable thing about, you know, at the time on Tumblr, there was all this talk about like appropriating aesthetics from Japanese culture, for instance. And we were just like, let's like get this out of the way from the start and just call this album USA and make it like irrevocably about, you know, the way that we were sort of brought up and sort of an introspective, you know, sort of journey through all these different moods in our lives that we all recognize. And since there's a bunch of us in the band, it became like a really collaborative thing. And it took like 5 years to make, actually. But by the time it was done, we had all these songs recorded. We were like, you know, it didn't feel done until the tracks were in that order, you know. It's just as important as the mix in a song or the notes that you pick.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so there are a few things you said there. First of all, I'm glad you clarified. You know, obviously it's easy to say you don't care what people think, but it's more like it's not a really good phrase. You know what I mean? I shouldn't use that phrase because it's like you do care what people think because it's more of an awareness, you know, of what people are going to perceive you as, but at the same time, you still want to embody like what you want to do, right? So, it's a weird balance, you know?
Yeah, we want to be careful to like, we want to communicate with people. We want to, you know, be in dialogue with the audience. And, you know, there are comedians who don't care what the audience thinks about them and they're not very funny, you know?
Right. So it sounds cool because then you could like consciously went and did USA in sort of a, not really a response. You're still doing your art, but it is partially a response to people complaining about appropriating Japanese aesthetics, you know, and then that brought to mind a question I wanted to ask you.
We had our fair hand in that whole process too, you know, like using things from video games and stuff that we were brought up with. But you know, there was this moment like on Tumblr specifically where it sort of seemed like lines were being crossed, and I think that's where the endless part of fantasy comes into play. Where it's like, is it really endless? Like, what happens when it's actually endless? You know,
right?
Like, you start affecting people. You start, you know, crossing, you know, you start really disrespecting people, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, that's like, dude, that's a whole interesting topic right there. It really is. That's cool. Was that sort of the same time period where people were simultaneously a little like commenting on your change in genre, like you doing, you know, prom night, you know, and pop it, like the more just straight up pop songs. I noticed a few Anamanaguchi fans were sort of complaining about like not doing like skate punk chiptune anymore and doing pop. And I was like, what are you guys talking about? They're doing both in this album. It's so cool. Like, and I love it all. I'm like, why are you guys complaining right now? Was that the same time period, sort of?
Yeah, it was roughly around the same time. Yeah, like I feel like 2014 is when a lot of this stuff came to a head, you know, and that's like business-wise, that's when Tumblr got sold to Yahoo, and that's when Oculus got sold to Facebook. And 2014 just seemed like that moment in like the middle of Obama's second term where it was like, do we really understand where we're going? You know, do we really understand sort of like what the real problems that we face are? Or like, do we evaluate this properly in, you know, not to frame it all like in American like political world, but like thinking of 2008, you had, right, like this giant financial crisis where everyone realized like, you know, there's this whole old system that's like being propped up by nothing. And like, meanwhile, life is continuing in ways that like people can't really measure online. And then it seemed like, okay, maybe we're building towards something. And then 2014 was like another moment that felt like 2008, at least to me, where it was like this sort of almost like swallowing of the new thing by the old thing in an attempt to like sort of tame it. That obviously didn't work. But yeah. I don't know if any of that made sense. But.
No, I think I know exactly what you're saying. Like you're talking about like the tech giants and the corporate, dictators really just taking over, like not only those platforms, but also keep going.
I was just gonna say, like I mean, like a company like Twitter, right? Like Twitter was a small thing in 2009, and it that's when it had its like sort of coming out moment where it was like, whoa, this is started by this actual like kind of weird punk guy, Jack Dorsey, who's like trying to use this to organize protests and stuff, right? And that was in 2009, and then by 2014 it's sort of like, oh, that's where like brands go to effectively advertise and like have these weird voice accounts, and like where Steakums, or it wasn't Steakums at the time, but like where Denny's will like joke about suicide or something. It's like, okay, this is like too much. This is too much. And the real like unifying thing underneath it is like, oh well, Twitter, I guess, is something you can invest in, and like they're technically a failing company because they're not turning a profit. And this is like in 2014 speak. I think they went public in 2013. Just like the fact that they needed to be like that. I'm just like balking at the dictator word, where it's sort of like it seemed more like this unconscious, unthoughtful process where like something like Twitter was this new thing that like wound up sleepwalking into basically turning into like a TV station where it's like, oh, we'll just run commercials next to the content, and the content is, instead of it being highly produced TV shows, it will be tweets that people actually just give us for free that we don't have to pay for, and meanwhile they make money off of the ads, just like TV, but it didn't really work that way, for various reasons, I think. And so that was like a point of tension that we really felt. I think a lot of people felt in 2014, where we all thought that maybe we were going somewhere new, and then it seemed like all the new things just got sort of roped into this old game. Maybe. Yeah,
no, I totally got you. It's such a weird time period, the last decade, and especially that whole situation regarding social media and entertainment in general, how it all feels sort of consolidated. But what I do like you explaining that, I appreciate that, because what I've also been noticing in some of my circles, the much more like organic and unplanned and sometimes unintentional path things take in life, and that applies to, if you want to apply it to society, or just like an individual's path, or Twitter, like I said, a dictator thing, and that could sound like some, doom and gloom, like it's a communist platform, but like you just gave me some history that I didn't know. It like started with a cool roots, like just a cool guy who started Twitter, and it just became this weird, commercialized platform. It's pretty cool, that whole dynamic.
Yeah, that not to I keep on picking words that you're saying, but to do this one more time, that word platform, I hear it all the time. And I think it sort of tends to obscure like the action that's going on, where it's like, oh, we're giving people a stage or a platform, or having an account somewhere is a platform. And like I wonder, like, what is that definition of like platform really? It's as if it were, etymologically speaking, like a flat plane, like there's really no such thing in nature. Instead, it interplays with all these other services. Like Twitter doesn't exist on its own, right? It runs on operating systems, which run on networked computers, which run on these chips that are made somewhere. And there's, I think, whenever something's called a platform, I feel like it's abstracted and like taken in isolation,
Totally.
And, that's the way people talk about Facebook. I don't know if you saw that movie, The Social Dilemma, which came out recently on Netflix.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't seen Social Dilemma. I've heard of it though.
Yeah, it's basically, for anyone listening, it's a movie made by a couple people who are viewing themselves as kind of like whistleblowers from Google, Facebook, Twitter, about how these sort of like algorithms are engineered to like maximize engagement and stuff like that. Meanwhile, they make it, and it's paid for by Netflix, which is also built to maximize engagement in another way, and uses all these snazzy editing techniques to generate meaning for you, in the way that only TV can do. So I don't know. It's one of these funny things, and they always talk about these things in terms of being platforms, and yeah, it's very frustrating.
Yeah,
I'm not accusing you of doing that, but just like I feel like the way people tend to talk about these things, it's done on a level that I think never really hits the root.
That's cool, man. I actually like that, because lately I've been connecting with people online, and it doesn't feel like a platform. It feels like a gigantic room where I can just meet whoever the hell I want to meet. And then
I mean, we're in a room right now. This Discord room.
Yeah.
There's no I can't see you, and it's sort of like we're on the phone or something, but the quality's much better. And but yeah, I see you have a name here, and then this will be recorded, and maybe someone will even throw some voice recognition AI on it and make a transcript or something. Who knows?
So cool.
And then people can search words, and yeah, that's where the action is at. These word search thingies that happen.
For sure. Dude, so cool. Yeah, etymology is fascinating, and just that word platform does make it feel a lot more fixed and like top down, and not organic really. It makes the internet seem less organic and just natural. And what I like about Anamanaguchi and what you talk about, and all of you guys, you've always reassured me like the beauty of technology, the beauty of the internet, and how it's like a very, very rad thing, and it's a good thing. We need to remember that. A lot of people, there are downsides to like the malevolent side of technology, but it's a neutral thing, right? It's a neutral thing that can be used for beautiful actions, or harmonious actions, or something not good. But I think ultimately going forward, if people continue to use it in a positive way, which most people do, it's awesome, and it's organic. It's just another reality that can be used for good.
I think there any technology, whether it's writing or running on paper or stone, or broadcasting images, or typing on keyboards and storing those on silicon, things like that. I think each of these actually come with their own biases, and there are certain certain forms of this that generate different behaviors, generate different attitudes. So I actually I think I always try to take a realistic view on these things, and I think that, truthfully, the tools are not necessarily neutral. In that old phrase, it doesn't matter so much how you say it, it's how you say it. Obviously, both of those things matter. But sometimes, the way that something is said can inform actually what is being said. And, it's like that Marshall McLuhan guy said a long time ago, medium is the message. And a medium like digital technology promotes, just by being this giant memory palace of folders and addresses, all discrete and precisely ordered, that mode of doing things and that mode of perceiving, existing, will, just by virtue of it being done that way, promote entirely different behaviors and attitudes than, let's take, for instance, television, which involves, these flickering raster scan screens and photons being shot at you and images that will make the thing resonate and that have, all the weight of ad metrics behind everything that you see. And, I think those, I think it's not necessarily to make a value judgment on the thing, but simply to say, that these different media will promote different aspects of what human beings are naturally able to do, right? And so, just roughly comparing, that television environment would promote imagination, the ability to compose and divide all these images, synthesize memes, etc. Whereas digital technology promotes this searching and promotes this this indexing, endless indexing. And I think the only bad way these things can really be used is if they aren't really taken for what they are, and people using them don't necessarily take responsibility for understanding what they're doing. I think that's sort of the bad way they can be used. IMO.
Yeah, man. No, that was based. I don't think that's in your opinion. I think that's subjective. I think that's I do the same thing.
I try to be based.
I do the same thing. I'll say something that I really think is objectively the case, and I'll be in my opinion. But instead, I'm I think that's reality. But dude, no, that was based. That was...
I'm happy to be based.
Yeah, dude.
Happy to be close to the ground, whatever that means.
That was really cool. That was spot on. I love that, actually. And I just did an episode on anarcho-primitivism and nature and just the course society's on. And that little breakdown right there is going to be so supplemental and just, that's just straight up awesome. That was cool.
Sweet.
I know we're jumping around topics, but I had some questions lined up. If I could shoot you with some.
Yeah, no, that's great. Let's get some cues going. My work primarily, it's become work. I've just been following my heart and my path, and now I have a damn podcast which focuses on reality, but mainly it's becoming just I almost said self-help. That's funny. It's become a self-discovery, self-mastery shenanigans thing. And honestly, dude, the way I've found my way has really... I see that in Anamanaguchi big time. Just for some reasons I listed earlier. And I've become more artistic too as I've really chilled out and just enjoyed myself more. Cool. Art is really important to me. It really is. And the blending of authentic behavior, while taking into account other people's perspectives and the objective reality around you, but also staying true to yourself in an artistic environment is where I really see the highest potential manifesting. And I feel like that's what you guys straight up did with your band. So I guess the question would be, how has authenticity helped Anamanaguchi, from day one, I don't know what day one was, actually. Did it start with you? Yeah, well, let's in order to answer that question, which I'm not exactly sure how to answer, is
I know I say too much stuff.
No, that's fine. Yeah, but yeah, let's go to day one. Let me think about what day one actually was. So, I mean, I might officially say day one for Anamanaguchi is when I installed this software called Nerd Tracker 2 on my, I think it was maybe my dad's Windows XP computer, or maybe it was my Windows 98 computer. But anyway, it was the software that ran on MS-DOS. So it was like a command line music software. That's sort of what I used to program Nintendo music. So I first learned about it in high school. There was this dude, Kurt Feldman, who plays in a bunch of bands now, but he would make 8-bit music under the name Approximate, like with the number 8 at the end, like Approximate. And then he started a band called the Depreciation Guild, and now has a band called the Ice Choir. But yeah, so I first heard this like Nintendo music made by my friend Kurt, and was just like, whoa, this is out of control. Like, this is so cool. You know, like, I'm used to this sort of thing just, basically coming at me from like a video game system, but being able to control it and like, apply all these new sort of things to it. He basically made this thing that sounded like a sick guitar solo. And I was like, whoa, there's a lot of possibilities here. So day one is probably when I downloaded that software myself and started making music with my friend, John Bacon. Yeah, we would send files back and forth through AIM, like AOL Instant Messenger. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I had an account. Yeah, I remember AIM.
But yeah, so actually, now that I think about it, Anamanaguchi was my AOL screen name. So maybe Anamanaguchi technically started even before this, but
nice.
So yeah, we would direct connect, as it used to be, and send these like chiptune files back and forth, which were like 3 kilobytes or 4 kilobytes. And from the start I was like, oh, I'm gonna make a game. Like right now I'm making a soundtrack to a game that I'm going to make, and the game was called like V-Spike, and I had this like Mega Man style character drawn out, and I was going to make it in my TI-83 graphing calculator. So I had already been making like text games in my graphing calculator, but I had just learned how to use like the graphing functions and stuff like that to do like more intense graphics. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make the music, and I'm going to put it all online. It's going to be cool. I had no idea how it would actually come together, but I thought it would be fun. So I mean, yeah, that was day one, I guess. And then I wound up like being a part of this forum called 2a03.org. And that was it's no longer online, unfortunately, but that was a forum for Nintendo music run by this guy Snow Robot. And there was actually a really big community of people from New York City on there. So this was just an archive of like people living today making Nintendo music and posting it, like, music made in 2003 and 4 and 5.
Cool.
So I was like the kid in that group, and I wound up messaging all these people, like, because I didn't know what I was doing. And there are all just these like real, seemingly real connections, at least then, where these people would help me. But I think what really grounded it is and like what made it sort of connect for me personally, growing up, even before that, and like, as I mentioned, playing in punk bands. In fact, the name Anamanguchi came from the guitarist of my punk band, Jeff Filmer. He would just like say that as like this Jabba the Hutt impression. I thought it was hilarious, and I wanted to name my punk band that. Like, I was like, yo, let's call it Anamanguchi. It'll be fun. And they were like, no, we got to be hard, and they named it something else.
So good.
But but yeah, so in New York City, we would go out to places like ABC No Rio in the Lower East Side, or places out in fucking Staten Island or whatever. But so then when it came time to on like 2a03.org, there was this net label called 8-Bit Peoples, run by a dude named Null Sleep. And this was all sort of based out of New York. And then I found out that they were throwing shows, and they'd be at some of the same places that I would go for like punk shows. And it was just like, oh, this is really natural for me. So I started going out to these things and actually meeting these people who I had known from these forums, and, seeing them play with a Game Boy and then shred on a computer keyboard and have it be like making noise. I was just like, yo, this is insane. This is amazing. And so we all became buds, and, we'd organize shows together. There were these monthly shows called Pulse Wave. And that's, sort of what led me to move to the city, to go to NYU, to study music technology. Really to follow James there. James was our bass player, and still is. But he was a year ahead of me in high school. So he went to NYU's music technology program. And that's where I met Ari. And then we met Luke from MySpace. Basically, I don't know. I feel like there's such a distinction between what's real and what's not online. People can cross people's boundaries really easily, I think. Yeah. They can think that they know somebody and they don't. They can, and there are many, many ways that facilitate them to do that. To build up these, sometimes the word parasocial has been used maybe a billion times this year in the past year, but I think it's a decent way to describe really the more television aspects of the way that people use the internet, which is it's this big giant thing, when in reality it's a lot of these, like, what makes the internet quote unquote valuable is these smaller corridors that are really specialized, and these sort of like barriers of not just interest but of community, and it's such a shame to see the smaller forums sort of meld into the timeline of Twitter, and that's really, I think, what happened in 2014. But now there's something like Discord where you can have your own server, and it feels a lot more like AOL maybe in the early 90s, where you had these like weird chat rooms, but they were still under this AOL umbrella. So I don't know, but anyway, I would say the thing that that's always made us sort of who we are is we're just very careful about how we approach things with people, I guess, and that includes like the people in the band. There were other members before it sort of locked into this group, and Anamanaguchi now is like inseparable from. The real day one, I think, of Anamanaguchi as it is, when we played our first show together, all four of us, like me, Ari, Luke, and James. And that whole, which by the way, was at a house party in Los Angeles. That was the first show that we all did together. Because Luke had been recommended as the drummer, for this house party. It's a long story, but basically I think that's kind of what it comes down to. And I don't know. But yeah, it's like you said, like there's a lot of fun implied there. A lot of like, just not trying to force things too much.
Right.
But yeah, and that's really to say nothing about the actual music, just sort of the way that we like to do things.
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
Sorry for rambling or whatever.
Dude, no, I love it. I like that when people just talk. It's great. Yeah, dude. So that's such a cool timeline of events. I think in 2003, I'm 27. You don't have to disclose your age, but I'm 27.
I'm 32.
32. Cool. Cool, dude. Yeah. In 2003, when you were making chiptune with homies on AOL, I was playing Toonami video games on CartoonNetwork.com.
Oh yeah, nice. I would play Flash games on Disney's website. They had this game called 1/6 Skater, and I would play that Flash game on the school computers because I wanted to go home and play Tony Hawk, but
Nice.
I couldn't, so I had to settle for this shitty Flash game.
That's so good. That's hilarious, dude. Yeah, that's so awesome. I mean, I think the component that seems inherent to your makeup, like your nature. What's cool about this stuff I talk about is so many people are just themselves and they don't think twice about it. And I think that's what like you, Ari, Luke, and James do. You're just yourself, and you don't even like think about it. And what I happen to do is like over intellectualize these fundamental dynamics of just being a person. So I'm sort of like being this crazy wizard, like breaking down the way you guys
that
work.
we beat our hearts, we would lose our minds.
Dude, exactly. It's so crazy. That's so cool, dude, to hear that. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
Let's talk about Endless Fantasy.
Cool.
I remember the Kickstarter. That was like, some people would call it a miracle. Some people would call it you guys doing the right thing. And I think it's a mix of both, honestly. You guys you made the right steps to make the Kickstarter just pop off. And I remember watching the video on your Kickstarter back in, what was that, 2012, right? Before you released it in 2013, Endless Fantasy. Yeah. And I was like, these dudes are just so like themselves. This is so inspirational. Like, I really like this. This is awesome. And I remember like the most unique part about, I take that back. Not the most unique part about it, but one of the most unique parts was the Furby. I would like to ask about the Furby and just your experience with Kickstarter and just following your passion and just doing it. I'm sure there was some hesitation at some points, like, damn, should we really do a Kickstarter, or like, should we actually go for it?
Yeah,
I watched the numbers just climb over weeks, and I was like, holy shit, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, from the start, like when we were thinking first of maybe we should do, maybe we shouldn't, the album was already done at this point, and Ari and I were just sort of sitting and being like, there's a kind of stigma for like a band asking for money, right? But then the sort of argument that I put forward was like, this is sort of like just using the internet the way that it makes sense to. It's like, we don't want to make too many copies of this. Let's find out who actually wants it, And so we set a goal that we thought was pretty high, $50,000. We were like, yeah, we'll ask for that much, and maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't, but we hope we do. And if we do, that will mean that there's enough people that actually care for us to like do more than just what we already had, which is we could put out these 22 songs on a vinyl record. We could do that. But if we want to make a music video, if we want to make merch, if we want to do the other things that like surround that central thing, making tour production for lights and stuff, that would require additional support. So, but yeah, you said miracle and the other aspect, and I think I would view it in terms of like, it was a blessing and a curse, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of back to this whole like fantasy reality thing, there was so we asked for $50,000, right? We didn't think that over the like 30-day campaign we would maybe hit that, right? Instead, we actually hit it in 12 hours. So we like put it up, went to sleep, and we had already hit the goal. We were like, what the fuck? This is insane. Like, we didn't think about what would actually happen if that went through. We literally did not think this through at all. And so it did. And then, we basically had to deliver. We suddenly became responsible. So we wound up being responsible for over 7,000 backers who had paid for this thing to exist. And, we made all these goals, and then we had stretch goals on top of it. The stretch goals, didn't come to fruition. Some of the goals, actually, the rewards, we still hadn't. I feel like there's some that we haven't still fulfilled, 7 years later. It's kind of insane. But we really spread ourselves way too thin. Did not expect there to be such a response, and didn't expect the work that would have to go into actually administrating all this stuff. It's like, okay, well, let's say you have thousands of people who want this iridescent USB that we made a mock-up for. Okay, well, now you actually have to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds easy, but you call after like your fourth conversation with a fourth different USB manufacturer distributor, and then they tell you that after you've like sussed out the exact sort of, you know, iodized metal that you'd like, and exactly how to phrase that to like come up with that term more than just like having the JPEG handy. And then they just tell you, oh no, it's actually impossible. Like that.
Damn.
When you're like months through, it's like, fuck, like that's supposed to be like a basic part of this. And like, that's hard to do. We actually wound up making it, which was sick. But, yeah, the reality hit, you know, and it's like doing the more than just became as much excitement as burden. And the things that we were able to do actually were amazing. That like the aspects that were worthwhile and did work. Sorry, for instance, like the stage production, James wound up killing it, and James wound up having the budget to make a stage show that, you know, was a huge upgrade and exactly what those shows needed to be. And on top of that, we were able to make music videos. We were able to send that slice of pizza into space. We were able to do all these like stupid, crazy, fun things that were only made possible by the support of these individuals who decided, you know, that they wanted to help us. And so it really was a blessing in that sense. But it really took years and a serious like psychological toll on me, and I'm sure the other guys too. But like, I would see in my Tumblr asks, I remember in like 2014, like sort of death threats, like things, not necessarily death threats. I don't know if that it ever got to that level, but like just people really getting nasty in there and sort of making me feel very upset. Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, it was a really actually like rough time, and it was at least tempered by the fact that we were able to actually pull off what we really hoped to do. So that was the sort of upside to it, I guess. Yeah.
Actually, you know, that brings to mind, I remember you guys released a video, I think it was you and Ari chilling in your apartment talking about just the technical difficulties you were going through. I think, didn't you make a video like talking about it, like distributing the supporter rewards and everything like that? Am I imagining that, or did you actually make a short little video?
Maybe we did.
I don't know. That's not really important, but I guess what I'm saying is, if that did exist, that is why you made that video. That's crazy, man. Like that is a blessing and a curse, because I mean, yeah, it's like you wake up one morning and you're like, shit, people really believe in us and want to support us. Now we have all these funds. Now we have to make it happen.
Follow through. Now we have to follow through on that belief, and it can be too much to bear, you know?
Yeah, dude. It's so cool. That whole thing, man. I think you guys did great. I think you supplied us with, you know, so much content, and then physical and non-physical, like the music, the digital stuff, and the merch, the tours. I mean, the shows are just so great. Just to tell you, man, you guys blow it out of the park. Fuck the haters. Honestly, I don't like to get like that often, but really, dude, people, I mean, bless them, really, if they're really that bitter to send you a threat. Like, come on.
I mean, like it totally. Yeah, it's not the best, but at the same time, like, it's understandable, at least for them to be upset. It's like,
true,
coming up with this expectation, you know. And it comes to the fact that, like, well, they don't really know where we're coming from.
True.
And the reason that they don't know where we're coming from is because there's like maybe too big of a link far away from us, you know. There's this disconnect, and that's what happens when someone tries to, like, quote unquote blow up. You inevitably lose your tie to reality, and that works both ways, you know.
Right. What a perfect I mean, I don't know if you think about synchronicities or anything, but like just planning to name the album Endless Fantasy, and then literally your reality becomes an endless fantasy. Like, yeah, that's trippy, dude. That's so trippy.
I don't necessarily believe in, well, I what I call synchronicities Aristotle would call formal causality. I too am interested in philosophy and shit. And yeah, it's the thing's nature, the thing's form, what it is that. And so when you're calling something, especially if you're an artist and you're trying to give due to reality in some way, yeah, like, oh, endless fantasy, yeah, that sounds right. And then it's like, oh, I guess that actually is what it is. Yeah, and the same with USA.
Yeah, oh my god, it's so nuts. Dude, yeah, I like what you said about I mean, this big thing I've been noticing talking to so many different worldviews is terminology is so silly and detrimental in some regards. When it's like, you could have an someone with a completely polar opposite worldview. Let's take, I think the example I bring up too often is an Orthodox Christian who believes in a totally deterministic God, and then a very philosophical atheist, right? They're going to experience like the same phenomena, but their framework of describing the events is totally antithetical to each other's like ethos, but they're experiencing the same shit. Really, it's so interesting, man.
Yeah, they have a different mode of understanding.
Yeah,
just by virtue of being different people, occupying different space, maybe living in different time,
right.
And yeah, that's the way that person's formed and the way that they experience the world will be different, even in cases like from your parents or from your brother or something. Yeah, and yeah, there can be a big gap, but yeah, there are things that have to, but like can be agreed on. It's like,
yeah.
And that normally in philosophy or whatever, it comes down to like the senses, right? It's like I can see something, you can hear something, smell, see, or I already said that, touch, taste. Yeah, and then things tend to get messy when sensing physically moves into the brain, right? And phenomena, I guess, isn't that the whole Kant thing? How the phenomenon and the noumenon sort of do their thing, but yeah, it's like how what is sensed becomes what is understood. That's like the murky part, I think.
Yeah, this conversation is flowing really, really awesome. That brings me to the next thing I want to say. Relate that directly to your band. Like I've seen people. I remember hearing quotes, or like you say in videos, like, I'm sort of tired. I don't know if I'm not claiming to quote you perfectly, but like I'm sort of tired of people just considering us just a video game band. And when I heard you guys talk about like just that conversation, like just being considered that cute video game band, I was like,
yeah, like Mario at a rave,
dude,
I think was the stereotype.
Oh man, because I was like, oh my god, this is weird, because when I listen to Anamanguchi, I like lay down or drive or skateboard, and I feel like I'm in another universe. I don't even really think about video games. Like, sure, it's chiptune. Sure, it's got like, a plethora of sounds from video game consoles. But honestly, it just pops me into another dimension entirely. And I'm like, man, I wonder what the breakdown in percentages of Anamanaguchi fans who like are like, whoa, I'm in another reality right now. Or, oh, I'm in Mario,
Well, so cool. It's funny. I can actually speak to that a bit. So I feel like the funny thing is, grammatically speaking, what's happening there is a sort of, it's called the synecdoche is being made, where video game is used as shorthand for digital, right? And we would never argue if someone said, oh, they program digital music, they're making computer music. We'd be like, yeah, we're a computer music band, we make music digitally. Like 100%. That's exactly what we do. It also turns out video games are made the same way. So, yeah, and we are using the same computers, which are video game consoles, but like people sort of get like wrapped up in that other layer of the metaphor and then apply that to what's happening. And that's where, the confusion can set in. But like literally confounding the thing. But, yeah, when it comes to Another World, actually, I had a funny story. We played at Comic-Con last year, and this kid came up to me and was like, "Hey, I saw you guys in 2013, and the same thing happened to me this time. Like after the show, I just started sensing everything in like pixels and like in hearing things like in these kind of pixels. Like it was with me for like hours after the show." And it's funny. It's like literally, you know, that's what's coming out of the speakers. It's translated into analog, but still, it's like these 8-bit digitally quantized. There are only 16 volume levels on the NES, so you're hearing things like without that analog sloping, you know, where you're literally listening to steps of sound. All the dynamic is reduced to these 16 steps. And so, yeah, for someone to say like, yo, my senses were like transformed by this for a little bit after, you know, you have to wonder what happens to like a kid, right, who knows nothing else. Like
right.
how their senses are shaped by the stuff that surrounds them early on. It's kind of crazy.
Totally, dude. Yeah, man. It's so fascinating, honestly. The way you guys use 8-bit and 16-bit chiptune,
Yeah.
in conjunction with fantasy and then art. It's so awesome. And like the feelings I get are just raw, but like raw in a sense of just untamed, but it's like simultaneously beautiful, unknown, and just happy as fuck. It's crazy. Like the dynamics with Anamanaguchi are so intricate, but like the foundation is so simple. And honestly, man, like the way I break down consciousness is like, there's a foundation with how things operate, but once you get into experiential knowledge and people's subjective experiences in life, there becomes like more complexity to it. And that's where like individuals have different, perceptions and all sorts of things. And with Anamanaguchi, it's like, yeah, the foundation is pretty simple, 4-piece band with some electronic components, and then it just pops you into another universe. So cool, dude. Yeah. Let's see.
I've been studying, you used the word perception. I've been studying that a bit, actually, these past couple of years.
Dude, awesome.
Even while making USA. I mentioned the work of Marshall McLuhan earlier. I don't know if you're familiar with this dude, but I like basically spent 2 years in a total McLuhan obsession. Read pretty much everything that the guy wrote. This is the guy who said, the medium is the message, etc. But he also said, like, all technology extend our senses, our faculties, things like that. So, that's true whether you're talking about a wheel or a telegraph, and so, or a computer, for instance. So I began studying these different faculties, which, sort of brought me, oddly enough, to like the medieval philosophical world,
Cool.
where they would talk about different faculties of the soul and how, perception, basically what powers of perception actually exist. And the medievals all agreed that, they're in the brain, and they disagreed about the number and kinds that there were, but there was a lot of agreement actually around some of the more basic principles. So anyway, that's just something I got super into.
Dude,
So,
that is
still an interest of mine.
rad, because that is so cool. Honestly, like understanding perception and really anything about perception, but I think the biggest thing is understanding really how, not necessarily like very objectively how exactly it works. Not everyone has to be on the same level there, but if we all can agree, that people come to different perceptions through different modes of experience, and then there's a plethora of perceptions on the planet. I think that's just a fundamental foundation for living, really. And that sort of blows my mind. You say you're deep diving that, because I've been deep diving that that dynamic too. It's pretty cool, man. Like that's pretty tricky.
Yeah, like even plants sense to a degree. They don't smell or anything like that, but they have it's called, I guess, a vegetative soul, where they still need to develop and so they'll grow, reproduce, so they'll move in these different ways, and they're alive, so they have a soul. But yeah, animals have really sophisticated perceptive faculties too, beyond just like that an eagle can see well. They also can imagine things that are absent. They can also instinctually know to avoid certain things or seek after other things, and then store those in their memory. When you throw humans into the mix, that there just becomes a whole nother level to it.
Yeah, man.
But the same basic structures are still there,
Right. It's really fascinating, and it's honestly, it's like it makes sense. Like I don't know, the other month, I was like, holy shit, I need to talk to Pete or something, because there's an underlying reason like I'm resonating with the music so much, and like when they say stuff on the internet, I'm like, yeah, these guys are rad. There's something to it.
Yeah, I shitpost a lot, dude.
Isn't that so freeing to be like, serious and like care about stuff, but also shitpost? Isn't that the best, most freeing thing ever?
Yeah, shit posting on the timeline just seems like the right way to do the timeline. Like, right. What else can you do?
Yo, this is gonna come out of nowhere, but tell me about the experience with the Taco Bell ad for Pop It, and like if you want to talk about Pop It, because Pop It to me, sure. On like the timeline of Anamanaguchi was super cool. Like at the time I was getting into Carly Rae Jepsen and PC music. So I was getting into PC music and Hannah Diamond and all that stuff. Yeah. And then you guys like also released Pop It, and I was like, this is weird. I also got into KKB at the time, Character Benito.
Love them. Yeah.
I know you guys are homies. I'm super into them. So I got into all this like more pop and fun stuff. And then you guys started releasing that, and partially, honestly, probably subconsciously, deep down, Prom Night probably tapped me into that feeling, So, Pop It in the Taco Bell commercial, dude. That was a cool time. Tell us about that if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Pop It, we weren't even sure if that was going to be an Anamanaguchi song, right? Because, like, we wanted to tap into, like, the more pop world that we love so much. And, yeah, of course, we had heard Hannah Diamond and A.G. Cook's mixes for PC music, and we were just like, yeah, this is amazing. This is like similar to like music that we've made solo. Like Ari and I had both done things that were like seemingly in that world on our own, and we were like, it would be really, really cool to like do this with like a vocal, because Anamanguchi had really been, not totally, but like very much an instrumental project for a long time. And so we had this cool situation where we had a studio just like kind of to ourselves for a while, and so we could bring in vocalists and stuff. So Mish, who was our friend, still is, she rocks, brought her in, and we'd pretty much meet up every Wednesday, and we had this demo that came together pretty quick. And we wrote the lyrics in like 10 seconds, and she killed it. And we just love this sort of like over the top thing. Like the song is very goofy. Like the lyrics make no sense. The structure makes no sense.
People were reading into it. It was so funny.
Yeah, it's great. But like Junior Senior, I think, is a big influence for that one too, with just like the gang vocal feeling. But yeah, really. Something that PC music sort of tapped into is this idea of like commercial music, and another big influence was the group Perfume, and in general the producer Yasutaka Nakata from Japan. So Perfume had they would basically, sometimes the way pop music works in Japan is like a company has a product and they want to make a commercial for it, and then they're like, make a song for our product. And that is like, instead of being viewed as,
oh man, it's something we have to work against. It's sort of seen as like a source of inspiration and is something that like helps make the song what it is. And so there's this sunbody perfume called Natural ni Koishite, which I think means fall in love naturally, or like natural love or something like that. And it was an ad for something I believe called Natural Beauty Basic. And the music video is them just like sort of waltzing around the town on this conveyor belt in front of the storefront of the shop. And yeah, it's like, okay, I mean, this is a commercial, right? But it's all very exciting. It's all very well produced. It's like it's great commercial music. Sophie, I think too, said in an interview, you know, what's the most influential music to you? And what's most influential to your music? And they just said commercials or something. But in the same way, actually, Marshall McLuhan, when asked what's the most underrated literature in the world, he just instantly replied, ad copy. And so we were like, what would happen if we just made this kind of thing? And yeah, it wound up not only being included in this Taco Bell commercial, but even before that, it was included in this like Target fall fashion campaign.
Wild.
Yeah, and like we had no record label. We didn't even have a licensing company.
That's so cool, man.
We just sort of like reverse engineered this like fun, bubbly, you know, meaningless thing. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. Misha's always just wonderful to work with. She's so much fun.
That is so cool, man. How you just like, I mean, that's straight up, you know, taking that you know, punk rock ethos isn't just punk rock ethos. It's like raw human emotion and attitude and just like behavior. But like you've kept that going through your growth with Anamanaguchi in a mature, balanced way. And like now you're on Target commercials and Taco Bell, like these big corporations, as Anamanaguchi with like a meaningless, fun, awesome, catchy, like fantastic song you wrote in 10 seconds. It's so cool, dude.
It was sick to have that happen. But yeah, like at the time I mentioned, we weren't sure if that was Anamanaguchi or not. So we sort of went through this crisis where we were like, are we going to break up? Are we going to have a new project altogether? Keep in mind, this is in 2014 when everything else I was talking about earlier was going on.
Yeah, timeline is important.
Yeah, and these worlds seem to be colliding in sort of a unhealthy way. And we were like, is Anamanaguchi a thing of the past? Like, let's fucking figure out what we want to do. And in the end of the day, we decided that Pop It was going to be an Anamanaguchi song, and then what Anamanaguchi was needed to change. And that's when we actually announced at the end of the Pop It video that our next album was going to be called USA. And so it was. But yeah, I'm happy it happened. It was like it was you know, we definitely could use the money, and we did. So
dude, it's fantastic. I was so hyped when I saw that. Yeah, so you said Mish. Mish is awesome. I listened to some of her own singles on online.
Yeah, there's more of those coming out.
Dude, fantastic stuff. And then also, I think the first I heard Mish was Japan Air, right?
Yeah.
Dude,
right.
Japan Air, so good. Like,
thank you.
I mean, obviously I like your guys' music, but like Japan Air was one of the best. And she seems like does she write the lyrics, or do you guys write them together?
We write them together. For her own music, she writes them.
Yeah. Cool. Dude, the core theme for the lyrics with the Mish songs is always just like determination, happiness, you know, being yourself, you know, like I remember when I realized I don't know what to call it. It's not the chorus, but like before the chorus, they all try to keep up while we fuck this shit up. I was like, yeah. I remember at the time I was working at a smoothie shop, and I was playing Endless Fantasy on repeat at this dang smoothie shop. And I was so unaware at the time, and I could tell like these moms didn't like it and stuff, but it was whatever. And I felt so stupid. I was like, oh, she's saying they all try to keep up while we fuck this shit up. And it's like, rad, cool. And then like, you know, the rest of the message of Japan Air, On My Own, Pop It. I mean, Pop It's super fun. It's just like really inherent to like being a genuine individual and yourself while having fun. I think it's just so cool.
The lyrics for On My Own were written with Hana. Like Hana wrote a lot of. She wrote the.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Up to You. Yeah, I'm thinking of Up to You for Mish.
Up to You
Hana is rad too.
Yeah, Hana totally rules. And but yeah, Up to You actually was a little different. It was I actually, so that song, the whole melody came from Ari. He just had this like little MIDI file and he dropped in to the studio one day. It was like, here we go. Like I have to roll, but have fun with this MIDI file. It's cool. And so that's like the main riff, like the piano thing in the beginning. And then I was sitting with Luke and we added like these drums, and it actually was still in the style sort of like inspired by Nakata, more so his other group Capsule than Perfume. But yeah, so we had this melody for a while, and I like to write even my instrumental melodies. I like to write them with sort of like an attitude in mind. Like I like to make the pitch bends feel like a real voice. I tend to make them monophonic so that they sound like you can follow the line of like a single voice doing it. And so there's all this like sort of personhood that comes through the sound specifically as it's programmed. But yeah, when it came time to like record a vocal on the song, which we weren't 100% sure would happen, but we were like, maybe Mish would be really good on this. And so I wrote lyrics for that one night, I think probably in 2016. And yeah, Mish came over. At the time, this was at my parents' place, actually. So moving all over the place over these years. But yeah, so Mish came over and I had these lyrics just like done. She was like, yeah, this is great. And we recorded them in like an hour, maybe hour or two. And then, yeah, but yeah, it's funny. I think that song is back to back with On My Own. So it's funny.
Dude, it's like perfect.
It's like On My Own, and it's like Up to You.
Yeah,
like, there's nothing that we can do. It's like I'm not the weaker one when I'm here on my own. Next to like, there's nothing that we can do.
Bro, it's perfect. I don't know, man. Like, just everything about USA just blew me away. And then you followed up with LOM and We Die and Tear, and it's just like, what are these guys doing right now? Like, and then you have is it BXS or BSX
with BSX?
Okay, yeah, BSX.
That's right,
yeah, bro. You guys just like encapsulate, all the components of just living a genuine life, in my opinion, in that album, and it just blew my mind. By the time that my first listen was over, I was literally just like blown away. Like, what is going on right now? Just it's beautiful, man. Also, to go back, I don't know if I misspoke. I think I said those components are antithetical to being a genuine being. I meant they're integral. Like, it's very vital.
Oh, yeah.
I think I said antithetical.
Totally.
So you got me, though, obviously. Yeah. Context. But, yeah, so Hana kills it, too, dude. Like, her vocals are so powerful. And also the dynamics there, like her powerful vocals and, and it's like just a very powerful song. And then Up to You is super.
That song is on the album. Like that song is very. I'm very happy about how that song turned out. Up to You. Sorry, On My Own. Obviously, both of them, but yeah. There's very very happy to have Hana on the record. So cool.
I need to explore more of her own music. I saw the live performance with her and it was very awesome. But yeah, like the vibe switching between those tracks is just it flows so well, and it's just such an experience. And I just want to let you know that like it's really well done, man.
Thank you.
It's really good. Like I'll honestly have days where I'm like, I need something supplemental to make me feel good. I'm gonna listen to USA like 5 times in a row. Let's do it while I'm just going about my day.
Yeah, it's funny. We all agree in the band that like we like listening to the whole thing, like all the way through. We don't necessarily have like a favorite song. It's more just like, yeah, throw it on,
Yeah. Memory Messengers is cool too. Even that title could be interpreted in so many ways. To me, in the context of USA, Memory Messengers sort of is just like, yeah, this art brings back memories from my childhood, you know, maybe even traumatic memories and beautiful, like, loving memories from childhood and, you know, yesterday. Like, Memory Messengers, like, it's really,
memory
it's really
can mean
awesome.
a lot of things. It's crazy like that. But it's always dealing with the past as past. Yeah,
Right.
like as a particular moment in time.
Yeah, in just the emotion involved. So USA? Yeah, you explained what USA was. You know, grounding it back into where you guys are from and everything. You explained that. What is CRT Woods? I gotta ask you that. I know CRT isn't that a type of television?
Yeah, well, CRT
Screen?
refers to cathode ray tube, which is the vacuum tube that was built into every television before flat screen digital HD TV. It's this very heavy vacuum tube. Yeah, I'm just reading from the wiki that contains one or more electron guns and a phosphorescent screen used to display images. So there aren't pixels on the screen. There's like this gun inside that shoots colors out on the screen.
Wow.
In these electron beams. So that's an early track on the record. That's like, I think, track 3. And yeah, it refers to, like, so I was born in 88. Like, so I had a bunch of these CRTs in my house, but I also grew up by the woods, you know, like I grew up in a place called Millwood, New York. And yeah, it's just sort of like refers to this sort of like learning how to speak time in my life, maybe like being raised in that circumstance of like having nature around and then having this like highly intricate technology that seemed like nature just in my house, you know. And the just sort of the I don't know, the lyrics sort of reflect that. It's kind of literal, I guess. Even the title is kind of literal. Yeah, it's I just remember, you know, staying up super late, watching TV with my brother, playing video games with my brother and sister. But the particular moment that inspired this song was, which, by the way, that song is the oldest one on the record. That one started in 2004. That's one of the first melodies that I wrote on Nerd Tracker 2.
Nice.
And so I wrote it in my house in Millwood, which is where it was. But yeah, the memory that I have is basically the power going out in my house, and like at nighttime. And so, you know, having to break out candles and like not being able to rely on The Simpsons at 8 p.m. for entertainment. You know, like not that, you know, the family didn't speak outside of that, but just sort of having the boundary of that be really felt by having it be gone, you know, and then noticing like, whoa, we're surrounded by trees. Like we literally live in the forest. I haven't really noticed that yet. Yeah, just like the lighting up the outline of these, the silhouettes of these trees outside our windows. So it's just like, whoa. So yeah, that's just an early memory for me. And then there was this like TV turnoff week that happened right after that. This was like one of these nationwide events that was promoted where, you know, there'd be no TV or whatever. But yeah, that it's sort of this feeling of things being like gigantic. It's definitely written from the perspective of like you were saying, inner child stuff. It definitely, it's not so much written from the perspective of like my inner child, but necessarily, but my actual childhood, like my like childhood as that at that time, in that moment. Yeah, and the lyrics sort of reflect like being unable to speak about it too.
Wow.
Just like simply sort of being still in like a kind of infant stage.
Wow. That's profound, man. It's so cool.
And
No, like I don't know. I read into everything in reality, and I really like that. But what's really mind blowing is like you guys listening, you have to listen to this band, please. When you hear CRT Woods and like specifically the way he described that, it's like what the melodies and everything sort of just straight up nail like the feelings you must have been having. Like it's pretty crazy. You know, the soaring melodies near the end with the drum, with the instruments fading out and Luke's drums. Just wait, no, that am I thinking of?
no, you're thinking of the right song. Yeah,
that is CRT
yeah,
Woods,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Cool.
it's just the drums and the thunder.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's as if the power's gone out and you can only hear these wood drums with whatever skins are on top of them.
So cool. That's nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, this is all just built into like this again formal cause in action where it's just paying attention to the reality that like, oh, we're a band that is not only digital but is also acoustic. Like we all play instruments alongside, like physically with our hands, and you know, playing whether that's an electric guitar or drums being probably the most acoustic element in the band. You know, metal and wood and all that shit.
Yeah. So fascinating. Let's see. Yeah, I really love the YouTube video guys you put out too, with the animated album cover. Awesome.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
Oh, you saw that? Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I spent way too much time on that one.
Dude, it's like such a subtle touch, and it's rad. I remember I was like, I think I was just looking for the YouTube link for the album. And I was like, wait a second. The little Tamagotchi screen thing is moving. Oh shit, there's there's something going on. That's awesome. Yeah, dude.
Right.
How long did that take you to do?
Way too long. I did it in a stupid way. And it takes when I tried to render the file, it said it was gonna take like a week to render just because of the stupid way that I made it.
Oh man.
So yeah, I would not recommend. But no, it was so much fun putting it together. Just sort of like, you know, we care about the way the look is presented. And so even with our live show, we mimicked it with production, having the book sort of outlined as a screen at all our shows. Yeah. So, you know, it's funny. At the time of this recording, we're recording on October 24th, at midnight, it will be the 1 year anniversary of the album USA.
Congrats, man. That's awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, crazy. I should tell the guys that. I don't think they know. Because I didn't know until just now.
Dope, man. Well, honestly, I try to keep my episodes. I know we didn't talk about time, but I try to keep my episodes around like under an hour 30. It's hour 21 right now.
Oh yeah, we're about there. Yeah.
Excuse me. If you want to tell people where they can find Anamanaguchi, your social media accounts, maybe go for it. Yeah. And I really appreciate you talking to me. This is awesome. You guys are rad.
Of course.
And like, if you ever want to just shoot me with some bizarre like philosophical thing, my brain is actually insane. I'll just talk about whatever. So
I love it.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Roddy. Right?
Yeah, Roddy. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Basically, if you search Anamanaguchi, ANAMANAGUCHI, we're pretty lucky. There's pretty much nobody else named that, so you'll find everything you need to find if you just search that word. Probably. We have a YouTube account. I guess we have a Twitter account. We have an Instagram account. We don't have a TikTok yet, but maybe that will change. I don't know. But yeah, we put out an album called USA last year, and we're still releasing some singles, which you can actually see. We didn't talk about any of that, but that's
fantastic.
Totally chill. There's so much to talk about. But if you go to summer.anamanaguchi.com, you will find 6 songs that we have released for free starting this summer, and 2 more which are on the way, even though it's not summer anymore. But yeah, summer.anamanaguchi.com. Check them out.
I will say those are fantastic singles.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's fun to like talking about something so structured as USA. It's fun to like do these one and done sort of things again.
Yeah, they're great. Cool, man. Well, everybody, that's Pete Berkman of Anamanaguchi. Solid guy, solid band, fantastic band. Yeah, check them out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, dude. Fantastic. All right, guys, that was my interview with Pete Berkman of Anamanaguchi. During the editing process, running this back, it's so funny, I didn't even realize that what Pete was saying about it being the anniversary of USA is that in 5 hours, my time, it will be the anniversary of USA. And it's just pretty bizarre and awesome how things just manifest in this world like this. It's really beautiful. You just gotta tap in to yourself, just be yourself, know yourself, know thyself in relation to the external reality that you're immersed in constantly, and just love and enjoy it. But yeah, that's really cool. I had a great time. Check out Anamanaguchi, all their stuff. I personally would say start with USA, I think, just because we talked about it so much. Not only that, but it's I do think it's a good gateway for Anamanaguchi. And then all their singles, Endless Fantasy, Summer Singles 2010, Summer Singles 2020, Power Supply EP, everything, the Miku content, Hatsune Miku content, all of it. If you like this episode, let me know. I could do more musician interviews. I'm trying to get I got a few people in mind. So yeah, check out the Patreon if you want to support. Make sure to do that. Energetic support is always welcome. And everybody stay blessed. You are loved. You're sovereign. You are powerful. Choose wisely and pay attention. Many thanks and blessings to Elijah for the $33 Patreon monthly donation. You are insane. Thank you, sir. Unlimited power.